Let's bring into the conversation right now Dr. Sal Mercogliano with Campbell University, who's been guiding us through this story throughout the course of the week, and he joins me now. Thanks so much for being with us yet again. I know we talked to you earlier this afternoon. We wanted to get you, though, here in prime time because, and Sal, there's this story that's breaking right now in the Wall Street Journal. I want to put up the headline here, and this is what they are reporting. A top-secret U.S. Navy detection system designed to spot enemy submarines first heard the Titan submersible implosion days ago. So from your expertise and experience, were they involved at all with the search effort? And if not, why not?
Well, this is the SOSUS array, and this was used to detect Soviet during the Cold War days submarines coming in. It's an array of listening devices on the ocean floor. And what makes the SOSUS array really unique is that it can hear at those really deep levels. And more importantly, because there's multiple arrays, they can actually triangulate in. So they should have been able to determine an approximate position of where that explosion took place. It really depends on where the arrays are located. And this area here is a tough one to get into because you're coming up against the continental shelf. But again, they would not exactly know what that explosion was. What they would have detected is a noise. And again, not exactly clear if it's an implosion noise or just a noise in general. I think going back through, they were able to seed through the data and figure out, okay, this is an anomalous noise. Now we need to go investigate it.
Yeah, because according to the Wall Street Journal report, it says shortly after the submersible's disappearance Sunday, the U.S. system detected what it suspected was the sound of an implosion near the debris site discovered Thursday. I want to get to the news when we woke up this morning that some debris had been found. When you heard that news, what went through your mind? To me, because we heard from Coast Guard officials, they found it about 1,600 feet from the Titanic wreck site itself. That's about 5 football fields in length. That's pretty close if you want to kind of parse through, how close that was or how not close that was. So to me, I was kind of thinking, what took them so long if it was that close to the Titanic wreck site of finding some debris at all?
Sure. I mean, so to put this into context, 1,600 feet, twice the length of Titanic. The reason it took them this long is they had to do this search with an ROV. And basically what you had was the visual imagery from the ROV, which is only, depending on the visibility down there, maybe a few meters. So again, imagine, searching through several football fields, and the only thing you can look at is maybe a yard in front of you and a yard to each side. And you just have to go up and down and cover that entire area. And probably once they got those ROVs on site, they went down to Titanic itself because they knew that's where Titan was going, and probably worked out a search grid to cover the area around Titanic, working their way out. And that's where they found it. The bow section where they were found, it's free of debris. Most of the debris came after the vessel. So that was a pretty flat, clear area. And so any objects that were on the surface of the ocean would be found, pretty clearly once they see it. And this debris also wouldn't have a lot of that growth and marine life and sand on it that you see right there.
Yes, also I was kind of curious as well. We know that about an hour and 45 minutes into the mission, the trip itself, that's when contact was lost. And I know it's kind of hard to predict, but it seems like the prevailing wisdom today, right now, is that is possibly the moment that the entire vessel imploded. Are you seeing that? Do you agree with that? Is there any evidence? Would there be any evidence to actually determine that?
Yeah, hour and 45 minutes is about 2 to 2.5 hours down to the bottom. And they've lost communication before. We've seen that repeatedly from stories that they've lost this. The survey of the bottom, where the wreck is going to tell us that. If the debris field is close together, that means that the implosion happened closer to the bottom. If the debris is further apart, in other words, it happened at a height above Titanic, and the Gulf Stream came into effect and drift came in, then that debris pattern would be scattered over a much larger area. So they should be able to ascertain, based on the location of the debris, when it happened with the implosion on board.
Yeah, and I think, just kind of talking about, what these 5 on board went through during this, everyone was trying to kind of put themselves in their shoes throughout the course of this story. And then we got word that this theory might have been out there that, and you and I talked about it just last night, that the structural integrity of the vessel itself could have caused an implosion because of the immense pressure put on the sub itself. And people are essentially saying that, you know, it was pulverized, and people are asking, well, whether or not these bodies can be recovered. But that's not operative, is it? Because of the circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, there's very low probability of recovering a body. I mean, just that pressure depth you're talking about would have crushed everything at that level. I think what we're going to see happen here next is part of the recovery operation will be to bring parts of the debris up. And particularly what they're going to want to look for is that tubular shape that connected the two end caps where the passengers rode on board. That's really the area that's going to have the biggest question. That is that fiber alloy that's put together. They'll want to be able to examine that and see what exactly potentially happened. This goes into the jurisdiction of who's going to be doing an investigation in this. This hasn't been ironed out yet. My view is it's probably going to be a joint Coast Guard, NTSB, and Canadian investigation based on the ownership of the company and the Canadian vessels involved in here. But they're going to want to bring it up. They're probably not going to be able to bring up everything here, but they'll bring up as much as they can in order to retrace what exactly happened.
Yeah, and that goes to where the investigation goes from here. Obviously, you still have so many questions like so many others. What will you be looking for, though, in the investigation itself?
You know, the things I'm going to be looking for here is not just so much what happened down at the site, but what was OceanGate doing with this submersible in between dives? What did they do when they came back in from a dive? Are they investigating it? Are they doing checks and making sure that the hull integrity is in place? Because that's going to show whether or not they were doing their due diligence to ensure that this craft was safe throughout. Again, we talked about this earlier. The reason, you know, they decided to do away with a classification society, and what a classification society would have required is periodic checks, inspections to ensure that this submersible was maintaining its integrity after not just an initial dive, but every dive it went on.
Yeah, because I think that's another question, you know, the communications internally with folks at OceanGate, both before, during, after, and throughout the course of this entire week. I think that would kind of give a huge, huge vantage point and viewpoint into what they were thinking and how they were operating and acting throughout the course of this search.
Yeah, because I do think there are decisions made in the construction of this submersible. Again, you know, a lot of things we talked about, redundant communication systems, an emergency beacon of some kind, that eats up power and eats up weight. And the only way you can lose weight on this submersible is by booting somebody off of it. And so decisions were made. Decisions were made about what to put on the submersible, what not to put on the submersible. And the larger question now is the impact this has on the submersible industry, particularly the commercial side.
Okay. Sal Mercogliano, we really do appreciate you kind of guiding us through this story throughout the course of the week. Your expertise is really, you know, unmatched, and we are very, very appreciative. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, right now, though, we do want to put up the statement here from OceanGate. We read this out right when it came out earlier today, and I'm going to read it in full here. They say, "We now believe that our CEO, Stockton Rush, Shahzada Dawood, and his son, Suleiman Dawood, Hamish Harding, and Paul-Henri Nargeolet have sadly been lost. These men were true explorers who shared a distinct spirit of adventure and a deep passion for exploring and protecting the world's oceans. Our hearts are with these 5 souls and every member of their families during this tragic time. We grieve the loss of life and joy they brought to everyone they knew. This is an extremely sad time for our dedicated employees who are exhausted and grieving deeply over this loss. The entire OceanGate family is deeply grateful for the countless men and women from multiple organizations of the international community who expedited wide-ranging resources and have worked so very hard on this mission. We appreciate their commitment to finding these 5 explorers and their days and nights of tireless work in support of our crew and their families. This is a very sad time for the entire explorer community and for each of the family members of those lost at sea. We respectfully ask that the privacy of these families be respected during this most painful time."